Let's return to This Week in America. Here's your host, Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody. Coast to Coast, This Week in America. All for BC shares a collection of poetry that Barbara Hagen has written to encourage Bill Cosby and others during their darkest moments. It includes poetry about love, encouragement and support, activism, and faith. Barbara began a professional writing career by writing articles on Associated Content, now yahoo.com. Having been inspired by an interview with Michael Jackson, she wrote and published a book for him called All for MJ, a collection of my favorite poems. More recently, she has published such blogs on the internet as A Day in the Life of a Compulsive Gambler and Writing Where Authors Fear to Tread. Barbara is currently working on a book for President Trump called All for DT, Poetry for Our President, to be published sometime probably the end of this year. She currently lives in California along with her husband of 16 years. Barbara Hagen, author of All for BC, is our special guest on This Week in America. Hi, Barbara. Welcome to the program. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Looking forward to our conversation today and what you're doing with all of your writing, the blogs, as well as the books that I just mentioned, talking specifically about All for BC. Barbara Hagen, the author, is our guest on the program. Where did the inspiration come to write this book, All for BC?
Well, I was going to go see a performance of Bill Cosby. In fact, I had purchased tickets twice because one was canceled and the other was turned out to be canceled too, and by the venues, because I think they had heard about the allegations against Bill Cosby. At that time, he wasn't charged or convicted of anything. And then I started hearing all this more negative stories, negative comments about him, and I thought, I wouldn't wish all of this on my worst enemy. And I thought, I really want to be his support because he was a really talented man, and I don't believe that he is an evil person, and I just wanted to do this for him. I was also inspired with Michael Jackson because I wrote that book before he did, for similar reasons. I didn't believe in his allegations either, and I wanted to. Since then, I just wanted to write for the underdogs. I've always believed, not that they're underdogs, I just, people who are suffering.
Yes.
I just and are going through a hard time. I want to be there for them.
With us on the program is Barbara Hagen. I'll give you several websites. The book's available at exlibris.com in the bookstore, available, of course, wherever you find books. And Barbara's website is BarbLynn Hag, H-A-G, it's BARBLYNNHAG.com. And go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and you can link on directly with Barbara's website, get information on her and the books. Once you decided to write this, talk about the process of writing the poems together. I guess it's one thing to think, okay, I really don't believe these to be evil people. I should write a book. Then you actually put the books together. You put the collection together. How difficult was it to get the inspiration to write the poetry?
It really wasn't hard at all. I'd think of a poem and I'd write it, and a lot of these poems that I wrote beforehand, and some of them I just wrote and put on Facebook even. And then I use poems I've already written, but also poems I thought of on the top of my head that I wrote, because I write out of emotion and stuff and from my heart. And so it just seems like it came natural to me.
In talking about both of these, the subjects of the books, Michael Jackson and then Bill Cosby, talk about the impact they had on you, because like so many, you were moved by Michael Jackson and the music from throughout his career. And with Bill Cosby, I mean, he was America's father figure. I mean, we all grew up watching him and the television commercials and laughing at him. What impact did these two people have on your life?
Do you mean positively? Or,
yes.
Or
yeah. Let's do. From maybe an inspirational standpoint, and then we'll mention the talent part. From a positive standpoint, what impact did they have?
To teach me to not give up when things are difficult, to try to do what I dream, to live life to the fullest, and follow my passions and my dreams, and not be afraid to say what I think, and to show people I love them and care for them unconditionally, whether they do or not, in return.
Well, that's very good. And both of these gentlemen had an amazing impact on your life. And from a talent standpoint, I mean, you were talking about two of the probably the best performers that we've ever seen, weren't they?
They were. They were, definitely were. And you know what made Bill Cosby so special and especially talented as a comedian for me was how he talked about and joked about things that people could relate to, and he wasn't putting anybody down or wasn't nasty in his comedy.
Yes.
And I think when you can make jokes at without putting other people down, I think that's, for me, in my opinion, that's a good comedy. And plus the fact that I might want to add that my husband my father-in-law is Earl Hagen. He was the television music composer for the Andy Griffith Show and the Mary Tyler Moore Show. I mean the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Oh, yes.
And various others. And he actually met Bill Cosby and told my husband that how nice he was.
You know, as soon as you mentioned that name, I could see that in the television credits, black and white television credits, primarily from those wonderful series that he was involved in doing the music. I did not realize that. So you've got a real connection with show business, television, especially the early days of those magical days of television. With us on the program is Barbara Hagen. She's the author of the book, All for BC. Let's talk about that particular case. Had you been the judge, how would you have ensured that Bill Cosby would have received a fair trial? And I say that because this was really emotionally charged. I'm not sure how a juror could have gone in there and not had their mind made up because of what was made public. How could the judge have made sure that the trial was a fair one?
Well, first of all, if I had had the power, I wouldn't have accepted the case at all, because the only reason this came out was because of a comedian's jokes. All of this stuff, all of this hateful, damaging things that's happened to Bill Cosby, all of this just came out because of a joke. And I don't think that should have qualified him for a trial at all, because how do we, nobody knows for sure what happened. And I felt like that would put him in danger of being biased, having a biased case.
Yes.
But also, more importantly, is if I were the judge and I had anything in my personal background that would indicate bias and a danger to a fair trial, I would recluse myself and have somebody else who doesn't have a connection or have any reason to be accused of being biased. I'd put him as judge, or ask someone else to do it for me, because I feel like, from what I read, that about this judge, that there was a possibility of bias there. Because I looked on the internet, I looked up I was following his case, and his wife, I guess, was involved with sexual abuse victims, for example. And I'm like, well, if my wife is, or husband in my case, if he was involved with sexual abuse, I would worry about myself being biased, and I would really just recluse myself.
With us on the program is Barbara Hagen. She's the author of the book All for BC, a collection of poetry that she's written to encourage Bill Cosby and others during the dark moments in their lives. As the charges came out, as a trial approached and going through the trial, there were a number of witnesses. Looking back on it now, do you believe that the Bill Cosby is innocent? And if so, why do you feel that way?
I believe he's innocent because of how he's reacted to his imprisonment. Like, I've heard that he was entertaining his fellow prisoners, making them laugh. He was helping them by portraying Dr. Huxtable and entertaining the people with that too, pretending to be this doctor and showing love and kindness. And I'm thinking that if he was really such an evil person that they're making him out to be, why would he want to help people in jail? I mean, why he would just, if he was as evil as they said and did these things, he'd be really bitter and entitled, and he would give up on life and not do anything to help people. And I think that's why I think how he's handling his imprisonment is a test of his character. And as far as I'm concerned, he's passed the test.
Yes. The book is all for BC. Barbara Hagen is our guest on the program. You've had such an interesting writing career. The book, the poems, Michael Jackson, the now Bill Cosby, working on the one for the current president, President Trump. How did you begin your writing career? How did this begin for you?
Well, I was at a doctor's appointment with my mom, and while she was in her appointment, I was reading this magazine, and I saw this article about associated content and making money through writing. So I started doing that, and then it became yahoo.com. And then about this time, as it became yahoo.com, I saw a video about Michael Jackson, and I got inspired to write a poetry book for him to defend him, because I heard about what he went through from this interview in the police department, how they were like really abusing him, and he was going through all of this stuff, that they were touching him improperly and things like that. It was awful. So I decided I'm going to write a book for him. And then ever since then, I kept writing poetry books. Some of them I haven't published yet, but a couple of them I'm going to send to the publisher soon, and one hopefully will be and they'll be published by the end of the year or the end of next year.
That is fantastic that you have more projects that you're working on. Can you talk about any of those? What are some of the projects that you're working on, hopefully to be published soon?
All for DT, poetry for our president. The same feeling of wrongfully convicted impulse that I had for Bill Cosby and Michael Jackson. It's the same thing with, as far as I'm concerned, with this impeachment inquiry of the president. I don't think he deserves it. I think he's a great person, and if nobody stood up for him besides me, I would still do that. I would still defend him. And poetry is my best way of expressing myself, I think. So I want to give him the best I can. So I'm still working on that, but I should be done with that and send it off to the publisher in a couple of weeks. And then after that, I'm going to write a poetry book for my father-in-law, all for Earl Hagen.
Now that would be interesting as well. I'm anxious to see how that progress and the progress of that project. A couple minutes left in the program with the book All for BC. The author Barbara Hagen, our guest on the program. What do you hope to achieve with that? What do you hope happens with that book being out there and people maybe giving renewed thought to the Bill Cosby situation, the case?
I would hope that we would be more careful before jumping to conclusions and putting someone on trial, especially on social media and the tabloids, because man's life has been ruined, and he's a perfectly good and talented person, and it's been ruined all because of the sake of a joke. And I would say that I know some people might think this is censorship, but I think that there should be protections after this has happened for comedians to not make fun of people or bring up certain subjects in the material, like what happened with with Bill Cosby. It bothers me that all this has happened because of a joke. And I know that people don't want censorship, but after seeing this poor man go through so much and everything, it just drives me crazy. I just hope that my poetry will cause people to be more careful they'll think before jumping to conclusions about somebody.
Yes,
and putting them in there.
And what an interesting way to get that point across in the form of poetry, which you've done in the book, All for BC. If you had the chance to speak directly to Bill Cosby, what would you tell him, do you think?
I would tell him, thank you for inspiring me, that you've inspired me in many ways. Also, not only as a comedian, because you do clean material and material that everyone can relate to, but also because you handle circumstances that aren't favorable in a positive way, and you've turned it into loving people and to using your strengths to help other people, and also that I'll always be his friend, even if he never meets me. I'll always think of him unconditionally, I respect him unconditionally, and I'm always there for him.
Barbara
He's
Hagen.
not alone. It's not without trends.
A powerful message, and as I say, a very creative way to express that. And Barbara's book, All for BC, by Barbara Hagen. Her website is barblynhag.com, and that's spelled barblynhag.com. You'll find information on Barbara's books there, information on Barbara. You can order the book as well, exlibris.com. In the bookstore, it's available. The usual places where books are sold. Barbara, it's been a pleasure having you on the program. I'm interested in future writings. Hopefully we'll stay in touch. And I'm thinking with Earl Hagen, which is such a fascinating character, and I'm really anxious to see what you do in writing your book on him. And you mentioned that writing for the Dick Van Dyke Show, for example, did he write that theme song for the show? That's playing in the back of my mind now, and I don't know whether he actually wrote that. He did.
Yes,
Could always remember the theme song for Dick Van Dyke, him walking in the room and tripping over the ottoman there. I mean, it's classic television, and your father-in-law was part of that. And thank you for sharing all of this with us on the program today. Barbara Hagen, All for BC, is her latest book. Barbara, thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
It has been our pleasure. Information, of course, on Barbara and her books on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. We're back on today's program after these messages.
This Week in America is online. You can visit our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Scott Pinkerton, Associate Producer of This Week in America. Jay Anderson, Segment Producer. Ben Watson, Webmaster. Otto Bechet, Director of Engineering and TV Production. This Week in America produced and is a trademark of Blue Funk Broadcasting, LLC. For information on all of our guests and to listen to this week's show, our website again at thisweekinamerica.us. And I'm Sean Bratton, Executive Producer of This Week in America.